What happens when a calm, controlled Hollywood titan walks back into a room that once tried to break him and finds the tension still breathing, still waiting, still personal? Before we go any further, subscribe to Stage View right now, hit that like button, and drop a comment if you're ready for stories that don't blink when the truth gets uncomfortable. The studio lights rise like a slow dawn, unforgiving and bright, spilling across polished floors and faces trained to smile through anything. The view set looks the same as it always does on television. Warm colors, curved table, familiar mugs. But the air feels heavier today, charged in a way even the audience can sense before a single word is spoken. People shift in their seats. A producer whispers into a headset. Somewhere behind the cameras, someone exhales and mutters, "Here we go." Idris Elba stands just off stage, jacket buttoned, posture relaxed in the way only someone deeply aware of their own presence can manage. He's done red carpets that felt like battlefields. He's played kings, outlaws, gods, men who bend rooms simply by walking into them. But this is different. This is daytime television, smiling faces, polite applause, and a history that never quite closed its mouth. He adjusts his cuff just once. Not nervous. Focused. Across the table, Whoopi Goldberg laughs at something a co-host says, her voice rolling easily, familiarly. To the audience, it sounds like any other morning. To Idris, it lands like an echo from years ago. A memory of words that went viral, of tone that stung, of an interview that wasn't supposed to turn sharp, but did. The applause swells as the announcer's voice booms his name. Idris Elba steps into the light. The reaction is immediate. A standing ovation from part of the crowd. Phones discreetly lifted. A ripple of whispers. He smiles, nods, waves, that practiced grace wrapping around him like armor. But as he takes his seat, his eyes flick, just briefly, to Whoopi. She meets his gaze. For half a second, nothing else exists. It's subtle. Blink and you'd miss it. But something tightens. Not anger exactly. Recognition. Two people who know this moment isn't just another segment. Idris Elba, everybody, Whoopi says, her voice steady, professional. Good to see you. Good to see you too, Whoopi, Idris replies, warmth in his tone, but not softness. The audience murmurs at that. They feel it. The polite smile that doesn't quite reach the eyes. The pause before the words land. They begin where these shows always begin, projects, accolades, the latest film. Idris talks about his work with that smooth, thoughtful cadence, speaking about characters and responsibility, about storytelling that matters. The co-hosts nod. The audience claps in the right places. But underneath it all, there's a hum. A low, restless current. Whoopi listens closely. Too closely. Her fingers tap once against her mug. She waits. Then she leans back slightly, tilts her head, and says it. You know, Idris, the last time you were here, things got a little heated. The room shifts. You can almost hear the oxygen thin. Idris doesn't answer right away. He inhales measured. Somewhere in the audience, a woman gasps softly. A cameraman adjusts his focus. Heated, Idris repeats gently. That's one word for it. Whoopi smiles, but there's an edge now. Well, we're known for honest conversations. Honest, Idris says, nodding slowly. Yes, we are. The co-hosts exchange glances. This isn't in the rundown. Whoopi continues, her voice still calm but firmer now. Some people felt you walked away from that conversation before it was finished. Idris finally turns fully toward her. His shoulders square, not aggressively but deliberately. When he speaks, it's quieter. The kind of quiet that makes people lean in. Some conversations, he says, aren't finished just because the cameras stop rolling. A murmur ripples through the crowd. Whoopi's smile fades a fraction. You felt disrespected? She asks. Idris doesn't hesitate. I felt reduced. That word lands heavy. Reduced. He continues before anyone can interrupt. I came here to talk about my work. My choices. And suddenly I was defending my right to exist in spaces I've earned. That's not a debate. That's a burden. The audience reacts audibly now. A mix of applause and uneasy silence. Whoopi folds her hands. That wasn't my intention. I know, Idris says. And for the first time, there's emotion pressing at the edges of his composure. But intention doesn't erase impact. A co-host tries to interject, lighten the moment, but the tension refuses to dissolve. Whoopi lifts a hand gently, signaling she wants to finish this. You're saying this is personal, she says. Idris nods. It became personal the moment my integrity was questioned on a public stage. Silence. Thick. Electric. Whoopi exhales slowly. Idris, I've been in this business a long time. I've had my integrity questioned more times than I can count. And that's why this matters, Idris replies. Because you know what that feels like. Their eyes lock again. This time, neither looks away. The audience senses it. This isn't about winning. It's about something unresolved, something raw. The cameras cut to faces in the crowd. Mouths slightly open, brows furrowed. People realizing they're watching something real. Whoopi nods once, almost to herself. Then let's be real, she says. Do you think I owe you an apology? A collective inhale sweeps the studio. Idris pauses. In that pause lives years of headlines, think pieces, late-night debates. He could explode. He could retreat. Instead, he chooses something harder. I think, he says carefully, that acknowledging harm is more powerful than apologizing for tone. Whoopi absorbs that. Her jaw tightens, then relaxes. You felt harmed, she says quietly. Yes. Another beat. Another breath. The studio audience erupts into applause. Loud, conflicted, emotional. Some stand. Some shake their heads. Twitter is already on fire somewhere, fingers flying across screens. Whoopi looks out at the crowd, then back at Idris. Then I hear you. 3 words. Simple. Heavy. For a moment, it feels like something might finally shift. But the air still crackles, unresolved. This isn't closure. This is the opening of a door that's been shut too long. Idris nods once, appreciative, but guarded. That's all I wanted today, he says. To be heard. The camera pulls back slightly, capturing the entire table, the audience, the tension still vibrating between 2 powerful figures who refuse to look away from it. And as the segment fades to commercial, one thing is clear. This isn't just another interview. This is the beginning of a reckoning. And it's far from over. The red light above the camera clicks off, but the tension doesn't follow it into darkness. If anything, it thickens, lingering in the studio like heat trapped after a storm. The audience claps out of habit as the show cuts to commercial, but the applause feels uncertain now, fragmented, like people aren't sure what they're reacting to anymore. Idris remains seated, hands folded loosely on the table. His expression is calm, but his jaw is set, muscles working beneath the skin. Years of discipline hold him still. Years of learning when to speak, and when not to. Whoopi leans back in her chair, eyes fixed somewhere just past the cameras. For the first time since the conversation turned sharp, she doesn't look like a host. She looks like someone replaying a moment in her head, frame by frame, wondering how it landed so differently than she'd expected. A producer steps forward, whispering urgently, gesturing with quick hands. We've got 2 minutes, she says. When we're back, we pivot. Whoopi nods without looking at her. Idris doesn't move at all. In the audience, people whisper to each other, some shaking their heads, some nodding fiercely, some already typing furious messages into their phones. A woman in the second row wipes her eyes. A man near the aisle mutters, "Damn," under his breath. The lights dim slightly, then rise again. The red light blinks back on. We're back, Whoopi says, her voice slipping effortlessly into broadcast mode. Effortlessly, but not flawlessly. There's a faint crack now, something brittle under the polish. We're here with Idris Elba, talking about his latest project and clearly about something much bigger. Idris offers a small smile. It doesn't reach his eyes. One of the co-hosts clears her throat, attempting to steer the conversation. Your film explores identity in a really powerful way. And that's actually connected to what we were just discussing, Idris interrupts, gently but firmly. The interruption lands like a stone dropped into still water. Whoopi turns toward him again. Go on. Idris shifts in his chair, finally allowing his body to mirror the weight of his words. We talk about identity like it's theoretical, like it's something we can debate over coffee. But for some of us, it's lived. It follows us into every room, including this one. The audience quiets instantly. No rustling, no coughs, just attention. I've been in rooms where I was celebrated, he continues, and in rooms where I was questioned for taking up space. And sometimes those are the same rooms. Whoopi nods slowly, but her eyes sharpen. Are you saying that happened here? I'm saying, Idris replies, voice steady, that when I'm asked to justify my presence, my choices, my worth, especially by people who've already decided what box I fit in, it stops being a conversation. It becomes a trial. The word trial echoes, heavy and deliberate. A co-host shifts uncomfortably. That wasn't. Whoopi lifts her hand again. Let him finish. Idris meets her gaze, surprised for a flicker of a second. Gratitude flashes there, but it's complicated. I didn't come back today to reopen wounds, he says. I came back because people watching need to see what accountability looks like in real time. Not shouting, not canceling, just honesty. Whoopi exhales, long and slow. Honesty cuts both ways, she says. So let me be honest. The audience leans forward as one. When you were here last time, she continues, I challenged you because that's my job. I challenge presidents. I challenge actors. I challenge anyone sitting at this table. I understand that, Idris replies. I respect that. But, Whoopi adds, her voice dropping, I won't pretend I'm perfect. And I won't pretend I didn't hear you just now. A beat passes. Then another. I didn't see it as reducing you, she admits. But hearing you describe it that way, I can see how it felt like that. The studio reacts immediately, gasps, murmurs, applause breaking out in uneven waves. Idris blinks. The admission catches him off guard. His shoulders loosen, just slightly. Seeing that, he says quietly, matters. Whoopi turns toward the audience now. This is why these conversations are messy, she says. Because impact doesn't always match intent. And if we stop listening when someone tells us they were hurt, we miss the point. Applause swells louder this time. Some people stand. Others remain seated, conflicted, arms crossed. But the moment doesn't fully settle. Something is still unresolved, hovering between them like unfinished music. A co-host, emboldened, jumps in. Idris, do you think there's a responsibility on public figures to withstand tough questions without taking them personally? Idris turns toward her slowly. Withstand? Yes. Absorb endlessly without response? No. He pauses, choosing his next words carefully. Strength isn't silence, and resilience isn't pretending something didn't hurt. Whoopi watches him closely. There's something new in her expression now. Not defensiveness, not authority, but recognition. I've spent decades being told to toughen up, she says suddenly. To take it, to let it roll off. And maybe sometimes I pass that expectation on without realizing it. The room stills again. This isn't scripted. Everyone knows it. Idris nods. That's the cycle, he says softly. And cycles only break when someone stops it. The silence that follows is different. Not tense. Reflective. Heavy in a quieter way. From behind the cameras, a producer mouths, wrap it up. 30 seconds. Whoopi straightens, returning carefully to her host posture. We're almost out of time, she says. But I want to say this. She turns fully to Idris now, unshielded by humor or authority. I may not have said everything right before, but I hear you now, and I respect you for saying it here in this space. The audience erupts into applause, this time loud, sustained, emotional. Some cheer. Some wipe tears. Phones rise openly now, capturing a moment they know will be replayed, dissected, argued over. Idris nods, visibly moved. That means more than you know, he says. As the applause fades, Whoopi adds, almost as an afterthought, this conversation doesn't end today. No, Idris agrees. It doesn't. The red light clicks off again. But this time, no one moves. The cameras may have stopped recording, but something has shifted, subtly, irrevocably. And everyone in that studio knows it. Outside, in the world beyond those walls, the first clips are already circulating. Headlines are being drafted. Opinions are forming at lightning speed. And the real storm? It's only just beginning. The hallway outside the studio hums with movement the moment the cameras cut for the final break. Assistants glide past with tablets clutched to their chests. A publicist whispers urgently into a phone, her voice low but frantic. Somewhere down the corridor, a door slams, the echo sharp and sudden, like punctuation at the end of a sentence no one wanted to finish. Idris stands near the edge of the set, jacket now unbuttoned, hands resting at his sides. Up close, without the buffer of camera angles and applause, the weight of the conversation settles more visibly on him. His eyes are distant, not unfocused, processing. He's replaying moments. Words. The exact pitch of Whoopi's voice when she said, I hear you now. Whoopi remains seated at the table longer than usual. The mugs are still there, half empty, cooling. She stares at the surface of the table as if it might offer answers if she looks hard enough. For decades, this space has been hers, a place of confidence, authority, comfort. Today, it feels unfamiliar. Exposed. A producer approaches her carefully. We can cut that last exchange if you want, he offers. Standards will. No, Whoopi says immediately, finally looking up. Her voice is firm. Decisive. Don't you dare. The producer hesitates. It's going to spark. It already has, she interrupts. And it should. Across the room, Idris overhears that last part. He doesn't smile, but something eases in his chest. Not victory. Something quieter. Validation. They're guided toward separate dressing rooms, but halfway there, Idris slows. He turns. Whoopi. She stops too. For a moment, it's just them. No cameras, no audience, no applause to soften the edges. Just two people standing in the aftermath of something honest. Yes, she says. I didn't come here to corner you, Idris says. I hope you know that. Whoopi studies him. Without the audience, her expression is rawer, less guarded. I know, she says. Then, after a beat, but you did corner me. Just not the way people usually do. Idris lets out a quiet breath. Sometimes the truth does that. She nods slowly. Yeah, sometimes it does. There's an awkward pause. Not hostile. Human. You okay? Idris asks. Whoopi huffs out a short laugh. Ask me in a week. He smiles faintly at that. Fair. They part without ceremony, each turning down separate corridors, carrying the conversation with them like unfinished business. By the time Idris reaches his dressing room, his phone is vibrating nonstop. Messages stack on the screen faster than he can read them. His publicist, his manager, fellow actors, directors, old friends, even people he hasn't spoken to in years. You said what we've all felt. That took courage. Brace yourself. This is going to explode. He sits, finally, sinking into the chair, rubbing his temples. He scrolls. Clips from the show are already everywhere. Edited, cropped, captioned in ways that sharpen certain lines and blur others. One clip freezes on his face as he says, I felt reduced. Another zooms in on Whoopi's pause before, I hear you. The internet does what it always does. It chooses sides. It amplifies. It distorts. Some praise him as brave, measured, necessary. Others accuse him of being oversensitive, of playing the victim, of disrespecting a legend. Whoopi trends within minutes. So does Idris. So does The View. In the studio control room, a junior producer watches the numbers climb in real time, eyes wide. This is our biggest spike this year, she whispers. In Whoopi's dressing room, the television is on mute, but the captions tell their own story. She watches herself speak, watches the micro-expressions she didn't realize she made. The slight tightening of her mouth. The moment her eyes flickered, not with anger, but with surprise. She's lived her life in public. She knows criticism. She knows backlash. Still, this feels different. Her phone lights up. Texts from friends. From colleagues. From people who don't bother with pleasantries. You okay? You handled that better than most would. You should have pushed back harder. She sets the phone face down. For the first time in a long time, she wonders, not defensively, not angrily, but sincerely, did I miss something before? Across the city, the audience members who sat in that studio replay the moment in their heads. One woman tells her partner over dinner, it felt like watching history crack open. A college student posts a shaky video selfie. I didn't expect to cry at a daytime talk show, but here we are. The conversation bleeds outward, seeping into podcasts, news panels, late-night monologues. Everyone has a take. Everyone frames it their way. But beneath the noise, something deeper stirs. Idris steps out of the building hours later into a wall of cameras. Flashbulbs explode. Microphones thrust forward. Idris, did you plan that confrontation? Are you satisfied with Whoopi's response? Do you think she owes you an apology? He raises a hand, not commanding, just asking for space. The crowd quiets, surprisingly. I didn't come to confront anyone, he says evenly. I came to speak honestly. What people do with that honesty is up to them. Do you feel vindicated? Someone shouts. Idris pauses. I feel lighter, he says finally. That's all. He gets into the car, the door closing with a muted thud that shuts out the noise. But not the weight of what's been said in motion. That night, Whoopi sits alone at home, scrolling through comments she swore she wouldn't read. Some are cruel. Some are thoughtful. Some cut deep because they're fair. One comment stops her cold. I grew up watching you speak truth to power. Today, you listen to power speaking truth to you. That mattered. She reads it twice. Then she sets the phone down and stares into the quiet of her living room. For all her years of speaking, of challenging, of holding others to account, this moment demanded something else entirely. Listening. The next morning, producers gather early. The mood is tense but energized. We need to address yesterday, someone says. We can't just move on. Whoopi arrives, coffee in hand, sunglasses on. She takes them off slowly and looks around the room. We will address it, she says. But we're not turning it into a circus. What do you want to say? A producer asks. Whoopi thinks for a long moment. I want to say that growth doesn't stop just because you're comfortable, she replies. And that if I'm asking the world to be accountable, I don't get to exempt myself. Silence follows. Respectful. Heavy. Meanwhile, Idris sits with his team, watching the same storm from a distance. This is bigger than me now, he says quietly. His manager nods. You opened a door. Idris leans back, eyes closing briefly. I just hope people walk through it thoughtfully. Because somewhere between the applause and the outrage, between the clips and the captions, a deeper question has taken root. About power, about voice, about what it really means to hear someone when they tell you they were hurt. And as the world debates, analyzes, and argues, one thing becomes clear. The hardest part of the conversation is still ahead. The next episode airs with a different kind of electricity humming beneath the studio lights. It's the kind you can't script, the kind that settles into the bones of everyone in the room. The audience files in more quietly than usual, glancing around like they're entering a place where something important already happened, and might happen again. Whoopi walks out to her seat without the usual playful banter. The applause is there, loud but layered with something else. Anticipation, curiosity, unease. She waits for it to die down on its own. When it does, she doesn't smile right away. I want to start today a little differently, she says. The room stills. Yesterday, a conversation happened at this table that followed a lot of you home. It followed me home too. The cameras tighten in. No cutaways. No music. I've spent my life believing in tough conversations, Whoopi continues. But toughness without listening, that's just noise. A murmur ripples through the audience. I was challenged yesterday, she says, voice steady but unguarded. Not as a host, as a person. And I'm sitting here today because if I expect honesty from others, I owe it back. Social media lights up instantly. Clips circulate in real time. Some praise her restraint. Some say it's too little, too late. Others say this right here, is what accountability actually looks like. Across the city, Idris watches from a quiet room, the television volume low. He's alone this time. No team. No phone in his hand. Just him, the screen, and the echo of his own words from the day before. When Whoopi says, I heard you, again, this time without him in the room, he exhales slowly. His shoulders drop. Not relief. Something closer to peace. The audience applauds, not thunderous, not explosive, sustained. Respectful. The kind of applause that feels earned. By noon, the story has gone global. Headlines splinter in 100 directions. Daytime TV shaken by raw on-air moment. Idris Elba and Whoopi Goldberg spark national conversation. When listening becomes the real power move. Celebrities weigh in. Some cautiously. Some boldly. An actress posts, this is what it looks like when two strong people refuse to dehumanize each other. A comedian tweets, uncomfortable doesn't mean wrong. A pundit scoffs on a panel, calling it performative. And the audience, the real audience, the millions watching from couches and phones and lunch breaks, argues back. Comment sections become battlegrounds. Some see courage. Others see conflict dressed up as virtue. But almost everyone agrees on one thing. It didn't feel fake. In classrooms, students talk about it. In break rooms, coworkers debate it. In living rooms, parents explain it to their kids. It's not about who won, one viewer says on a viral TikTok. It's about what it cost them to be honest. Whoopi receives a handwritten letter a week later. No return address. Inside, a single line. Thank you for showing me it's never too late to listen. She folds it carefully. Keeps it. Idris, meanwhile, steps onto another set weeks later. Different show, different host. The questions come, inevitably. Do you regret it? Would you do it again? Did it change anything? He thinks before answering. It changed me, he says. And if that's all it did, that's enough. The clip goes viral too. Quieter. Less explosive. But it travels. Months pass. The storm settles, as storms do. But the ground it touched doesn't look the same. Talk shows reference the moment. Journalists cite it. Hosts approach guests differently. Some subtly, some not at all. The world doesn't transform overnight. But something shifted. At an awards ceremony later that year, Whoopi and Idris cross paths backstage. No cameras this time. No microphones. Just a nod. A shared look. and understanding that some conversations don't need an audience to matter. They don't hug. They don't speak. They don't need to. And somewhere out there, a viewer remembers sitting on their couch, feeling their chest tighten, realizing they were watching more than entertainment. They were watching what it looks like when power pauses long enough to listen, and when truth refuses to be quiet to keep the peace. That's the part that lingers, because moments like these don't end when the episode does. They ripple. They ask questions. They dare people to look at themselves instead of just the screen. So now it's your turn. What did you see in that moment? Was it confrontation or courage? Defensiveness or growth? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Let's talk about it, honestly. And if you want more stories that go beyond headlines and pull you inside the moments everyone else just schemes past, subscribe to Stage View right now. This is where the tension, the truth, and the aftermath live. Because some conversations don't fade out. They echo.